You did everything right. You followed the process perfectly. Maybe you're on a team with a beautiful color-coded hierarchy matrix that spells out exactly who is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed for every single task. It's a masterpiece of planning, a monument to clarity. So why is everyone still pointing fingers? Why does every problem, every missed deadline still turn into a search for who to blame? And why does it feel like no one, maybe not even you, feels a true sense of ownership? The truth is, it's not just a step in the process that's missing. It's philosophy. We've built flawless machines, but we've forgotten about the people who are supposed to run them. So if the charts aren't working, what will? Let's uncover the deep shifts you need to make to move from a culture of blame to a culture of true personal responsibility. The problem? It's the illusion of the perfect chart. Let's talk about a familiar scenario. Imagine a team led by a manager who is a master of process. His project plans are immaculate. His pride and joy are Racky Matrix, a tool used for decades to try and bring order to chaos. He'd listed every task, identified every team member, and assigned the letters RACI. On paper, it was foolproof, zero ambiguity. But in reality, the team was paralyzed. When a deadline slipped, the person marked responsible blamed the person marked consulted for not giving input fast enough. The consulted persona said that they'd never been properly informed about the urgency. And the person ultimately accountable? The manager. So every failure became his problem to fix. His days were spent refereeing arguments instead of leading. The chart had become a tool for blame, not for action. People did exactly what their letter told them to do, and not an ounce more. They weren't a team. They were a collection of roles in a system that encouraged them to protect their little box on a chart instead of driving for a collective win. The problem with frameworks like Racky, when they're all we rely on, is that they assume work is predictable and that people just need to be told what to do. But modern work is messy. It's chaotic and complex. A static chart can't keep up. It creates an illusion of control while killing the very things a team needs most: adaptability, initiative, and ownership. We don't need a better chart. We need a different philosophy for ourselves. And that's where the real work begins. The first shift from assigned tasks to owned outcomes. The first big philosophy shift is moving from a world of assigned tasks to a world of owned outcomes. This sounds like a small tweak in language, but it's a massive change in how you approach your own work. An assigned task is a checklist item. Complete the quarterly report. You do the work, you check the box, and you're done. If the report is technically correct, but completely fails to persuade the stakeholders it was written for, is that your problem? According to the chart, probably not. You did the task. An owned outcome, on the other hand, is a personal commitment to the result. The outcome isn't complete the report. The outcome is make sure stakeholders understand our quarterly performance and are aligned on what's next. When you own this, you don't just write a report. You think about the audience. You follow up. You ask questions. You do what it takes to ensure the goal is actually met. You are empowered not just to do the work, but to think, solve, and see it through to the end. It's the subtle difference between obligation and agency. Obligation feels like a chore. Agency feels like an investment. We will always fight harder for something we feel a part of, not for something that's just handed to us. So how do we make this shift? You change how you accept work. Stop just taking tasks and start seeking problems to solve. Instead of waiting for a manager to say, I need you to call these 5 clients, you can approach them and say, I see we need to boost our client retention. I'd like to own that problem and come back to you with a plan. See the difference? The first is a command you follow. The second is an invitation you create, an invitation to think, to create, and to take real ownership. It shows you are ready to solve problems, not just follow instructions. That's how you start becoming someone who doesn't just complete tasks, but actually achieve goals. The second shift, from fear of failure to freedom to learn. The second shift might be the most critical of all. You have to move from an internal fear of failure to an embrace of a freedom to learn. Think back to that team with the Rocky chart. Why did they cling so desperately to their assigned letters? Because it was safe. If they did exactly what the chart said, they couldn't be blamed. The chart was a shield. That is what happens when we operate from a place of fear. We stop aiming for success. We just aim to avoid failure. And in that environment, innovation dies. Risk-taking disappears, and progress grinds to a halt. This fear is usually rooted in punitive accountability, that whole get this done or else mentality. It treats every single mistake as punishment crime instead of an opportunity to get smarter. The alternative to help build what Harvard researcher Dr. Amy Edmondson calls the learning zone, a place where both psychological safety and accountability are high. Psychological safety is the belief that you won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or most importantly, mistakes. It is the absolute bedrock of high-performing teams. When we feel safe, we can finally focus on the work itself, not on the stress of trying to look perfect. Creating this safety isn't about lowering standards or getting rid of accountability. It means we can finally be accountable in a way that leads to growth, not punishment. When a mistake happens in a psychologically safe place, the question isn't whose fault is it? It's what did we learn from this? You contribute to this with your own actions. When a colleague brings you a problem, do you get frustrated or do you get curious? When an experiment fails, do you look for who to blame or do you ask the team what can be learned from it? We have to stop expecting our leaders to have all the answers and start being the ones who ask the right questions. We can help protect our teammates from blame. We can choose not to punish a learning error. When you do that, you send a powerful message. Mistakes aren't proof of incompetence. They're the non-negotiated price of progress. The third shift, from a culture of balance to a system of support. The final philosophical shift is moving from a personal instinct to blame to a proactive commitment to support. This is where our role on the team evolves from a simple contributor to a true partner. A culture of blame is all reaction. The problem pops up and a hunt for a culprit begins. A system of support is proactive. It anticipates challenges and helps the team win together. Our job isn't just to do our part, but to make sure our colleagues have what they need to succeed as well. What does that look like? It means shifting your focus from an individual performance to an overall health of the team's ecosystem. Are expectations actually clear in conversation, not just on a chart? Does the team have ways to communicate openly and hold each other accountable with respect? Do we feel empowered to solve problems together, or do we wait for a manager's permission slip? The great irony here is that when you let go of trying to control your specific silo, the entire team often becomes more disciplined. It's a bit like a concept speaker Mel Robbins popularized called the let them theory. If you're frustrated with a colleague's process, let them. Try it their way and be there to support them. Instead of trying to force people into a box, you can address the reality of the situation with support and clear communication. By trusting your peers to be responsible, you give them the space to step up. A supportive teammate doesn't solve every problem for others. They create an environment where the team can solve its own problems. They break down silos, cheer on collaboration, and make sure everyone is rowing in the same direction. Accountability stops being a top-down mandate. It becomes a peer-to-peer commitment, a standard of excellence that you uphold for yourself and inspire in others. That system, built on personal responsibility and mutual respect, is infinitely more powerful than any box on a spreadsheet. Look, making these shifts isn't a walk in the park. It takes real courage and a whole new way of looking at your role in work and in life. If this is resonating with you and you're ready to build a reputation for true ownership, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. While that doesn't necessarily help, we've got a lot more to cover on personal growth, culture, and what it really takes to perform at a high level, and this will keep you involved. Let's go back to the team and their perfect recce chart. The chart was just a map, and a map is useless if the travelers don't want to go on a journey, don't feel safe on the road, and have no idea how to help each other when they get lost. Eventually, the focus has to shift away from the chart. The conversations have to change. We have to stop asking, "Did you do your task?" and start asking each other, "What do you need to achieve this outcome?" We have to stop punishing failures and start celebrating the lessons. We have to stop being referees in a blame game and start being coaches for each other. Slowly, things can change. Finger pointing turns into collaborative problem solving. Paralysis turns into proactive initiative. People start talking to each other instead of escalating issues. They aren't just responsible or accountable anymore. They are invested. They own it. Because real responsibility can't be assigned. It can't be dictated by a chart or a job description. It's a feeling, an internal commitment that grows from a philosophy of trust, safety, and empowerment. It's nurtured in an environment where we are given outcomes to own, the freedom to learn, and teammates who have our back. That is the philosophy you might be missing. Thank you all very much for sticking around. Have a nice day.